it is not relevant to the new direction of the show.
It's relevant because
No.
we're still intimacy.
I'm changing it.
I don't.
changing our
I have to approve it.
I'm changing it.
I like that.
It's
Nobody
indicative.
hears it.
Everybody. Oh, in that case, you won't mind me changing it.
Yeah, I mind because I like it.
Keep it on there and loop me on there. Yeah, baby. Right there.
It's not even the same name. It's a whole new attitude.
Okay, but it's still
No.
Intimacy.
You can have you got a moment in the sun. You good.
anyway.
Yeah, baby.
Greetings.
No,
Not yet.
Not yet. Hey, Dr. Love.
4, 3.
You just mad because you got distracted.
There you go.
Good evening, everyone. You're listening to the Intimacy Chronicles. I am your host, Queen Jackie. To my right,
Good evening, folks. Rich, aka Quiet Storm, on a rainy Monday. Hope everyone's nice and cozy and warm today.
you want to introduce the next
And
man?
to my right, the man behind the scenes, our technical wizard.
See, I'll take that one.
Yes.
I'll take that.
Also known as the male chauvinist of the show.
I am the balance and the
Shots
levity
fired.
for this absolute nightmare that we call the Queen.
You know, it's a funny thing that you said that because my cousin, he's one of my older cousins, he called me last week and he said, he left a message and he was just like, your answering machine sounds so sweet. No one has any idea of the trash that comes out of that mouth.
Wow.
Yes, Lord. Well,
And I was just like, what? What are you talking about? He said,
it's true.
it
It's so
is a delusion. You know, it's like, I said, I resent that. I'm such a nice
true.
person.
You should have said I resemble that.
I resent it because I am very sweet. And I'm trying to figure out why Quiet Storm looking to the side.
I was looking at my phone. I was trying to look at. Here we go.
Yeah. So Dr. Love is joining us. Hi, Bridget. Hi, Wendy. Dr. Love says he'll be back next week. Hurt and all. But listen, don't rush yourself to come back because if you injure yourself, ain't a damn thing I could do for you. So,
She said, except press 911.
911 after I get the kicks and giggles out.
Sounds like a shot.
Yeah, get well soon, bro.
Yep,
Yes,
exactly.
yes,
We
indeed.
miss you, though. We definitely miss you. So, how was y'all weekend?
I had a good weekend. Busy.
Mhm.
Busy is good. Had a couple gigs. This Friday, I'm going to be at the Peabody Brewery.
Okay.
It's in town. It's a little brewery, local brewery on Greenmount and 30th Street.
Right, because we had a couple of fundraisers there.
Yes. So I'm going to be there for Happy Hour 69.
Mm-hmm.
Me, and I don't know who's going to be my partner in crime. I got to find somebody.
I'm
Okay.
going to beatbox for you.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Come on now.
There you go.
The last time we played there a few weeks ago, it was really nice. Appreciate all the people that came out.
Yeah, it's laid
So we're
back.
gonna
I
do
like
some
it.
more.
Yeah.
We're gonna do some more.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So I had a good weekend.
That's
And
good.
Yesterday, stayed home and washed clothes and relaxed and recouped.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here today. Ravens won, so it's always a good.
That's a
one.
good
Yeah,
weekend. Yeah, there you have it. And how about you, Mr. Sensational?
I worked.
You get laid?
Nah.
He
No.
got paid. He only get
Yeah.
There
paid.
you go. My pocket got laid. Well,
Well, there you have it. Yeah. One step closer to your empire.
there you go.
What about you? Did you get lucky?
I gotta think about it.
There it
I'm
is.
trying to think.
There it
Obviously
is.
not. If I'm thinking about it, I guess I didn't get lucky.
Damn it.
But I went to see this horror flick called The Nun.
Oh, okay.
That was good. That was really good. And I didn't know that Owings Mills had actually redone their theater.
They did.
Yeah, so they have the stadium seating, the recliners.
Oh, that's good.
It's nice in there now.
I'll check that
Yeah.
out.
So now I guess it's an AMC thing because when you see the AMC logo, it says standard AMC recliners. So I think all of their theaters.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's a good. It's definitely the seating is probably better than security. I love security, but it's more cushion.
You know
than
what I
the
like
seating.
about security is that they just don't give a damn. You can just kind of walk in there in the evenings.
Yeah.
It's just like, how you doing? All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Owings Mills is kind of like that, except for on the weekend.
Ah.
I think I saw Black Panther there. And that was the first at
Security.
and that was the first time I've been there in years.
No, it was just a regular weekend. You know, it always looks like Wakanda over there. So.
Oh God, there he goes.
He said it.
He said it. Those are his views. But they have what's interesting is they have the AMC Club and then they have the Premiere.
Right.
So I paid for the Premiere, but when you go to Owings Mills, they have one person that should be waiting on the Premiere customers, but they're waiting on the general line. So, of course, because I paid extra for my Premiere, I wanted to be waited on. I felt like no one and the other line should go before me. That's why you upgrade, so you can get that, preferential service. So the young lady was helping, a customer, and she had to explain the ingredients of the popcorn and all this. And meanwhile, I'm waiting.
Does their pork in the popcorn, basically.
Yeah, so when it was finally my turn, I asked the young lady, I said, well, what's the point in having a Premiere membership if we don't get first priority? Because there was a couple of people behind me, and they were fussing. And she said, oh, she just got caught up with the customer. Okay, well, if he want the ingredients, then he need to go online or something. I mean, I paid $15 for that upgrade.
Yeah.
So I want my...
$15 on top of the ticket?
No. For the membership, to upgrade the membership so that you can walk up in the line and be next.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you pay to route the line.
Oh,
It's a cut card.
It's a cut card, exactly. So when you walk in and it's a lot of people and it's just one person in the Premiere, they got to take you.
It's like the business line.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So one time a lady was
TSA
like,
check-in.
see,
Right?
do they have that? Oh yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
For the
Yeah.
right price, you can get anything.
Exactly. So I'm spoiled. I want what I want, especially if I pay for it. So
What's that company that gives you like the movies for $10 a month? You can see one a day type thing.
well, AMC has that. You pay $19 a month, I think, and you can see 3 movies a week on that $20 a month. So, but I don't attend the movies that often.
I don't either, but
It's
$10
good for
a month,
somebody
I'd
that-
probably go,
Yeah, exactly. But I just don't have the time.
Yeah, I got the deal with the Fire Stick. I'm like,
Yeah, I gotta get mine reconnected. So anyway, I think I had a couple of exciting things happen. I'm in the magazine article.
Yes.
I
saw
am
Feds.
in Critique Empire magazine. So definitely hit up Sharon Johnson and get your copy. It's $10, and it's a pretty well put together magazine. So
okay.
that was awesome. And what else do I have? I just got stuff going on, and I'm trying to keep up with
you got the reality show. I
everything.
mean, I
new
feel like
hair.
I'm your biggest
The
fan.
new
of
hair.
this
Oh
watching.
yeah, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Maybe that wasn't a good choice of word. But I'm red. I'm the red fox. So every now and then you just gotta do something a little different, shock them a little bit.
She's Sriracha.
So
You know,
yeah, that's what he said.
Sriracha.
Sriracha
light-skinned girl I
fire.
dated in the '90s now. And whatnot.
Oh Lord have mercy. But this time of year, I usually try to go back to my red. I love red. So Dr. Love says if you got to know the ingredients in popcorn, I'm not saying that. So anyway, tonight we're going to have Delegate Cory McCray in the building at 8 o'clock. And so I'm looking forward to chatting with him. I met Cory at the Terra Cafe, and y'all know me. I never have a problem going up and introducing myself and say, hey, I got this show. I'd like for you to come on. And because that's the only way I'm going to know. Either he's going to say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
But Cory is doing some amazing things in the community, and he's running for Senate. So
is it for the Maryland House?
for Maryland House, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And he's young, he's a young family man, and he believes in giving second chances because he was given a second chance. So he took his second chance and he did something positive with it.
Okay.
So tonight's topic, we can kind of touch on that. It's about having unity in our community. And how do we achieve that? And what having a show like this, I think that we have to maximize our power.
True.
So how can our voice be effective in the community? So that's kind of some of the things we're going to talk about. Mr. Sensational.
Yes.
Your thoughts on unity in the community?
It is currently sorely lacking.
Yeah.
I think there are many reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
Fear, I think a lot of it is economically based.
Yeah.
You have a large segment of the population that is kind of underwater, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
financially, and people are scared and they don't want to take a chance on dealing with other people when they don't know what's going to happen with themselves tomorrow.
I understand that somewhat, but I think when you go back maybe 30 years ago when they had a lot less than what we had, and they were still able to stand as a community to effect change. So is it a cop-out for us now to say that it's fear, that people don't know where they're going to be from one place to the next? Because I think they had those same fears and concerns.
I don't know if it's a cop-out more than a condition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have, our mindset has changed, of course, because we, years ago we had a stronger family structure.
True.
So you did have people, had a support system in that village that you could rely upon
Mm-hmm.
for situations like that. Now that is a bit striated. We don't have the basic family structure that we had before.
Mm-hmm.
We do have more difficult economic times. The political climate isn't great for minorities at this point.
And doesn't that again fall back to us?
Does it? I mean, if you have I don't know if I'm going too far off topic, but
No, I like this.
When
First
you
of all,
have
I'm
an
happy that you're
election
participating. Let me
that
just
is-
say that.
oh, well, thank you. If you have an election that has been stolen and given to someone who is a sympathizer for white nationalists and everything else,
Mm-hmm.
and known enemies of the country, what do we have to look forward to right now except for the upcoming elections and hope that there's some sort of balance?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to, hopefully everybody goes out and votes. Hopefully everybody, because that's
Hopefully, yes.
our only possibility of getting some sort of, levity in here and equality to a certain extent. But right now, yeah, we're looking bad.
We're looking bad, and I think that I agree with everything that you said, but when we get these elected officials in office, we don't hold them accountable. And so I feel like we give them the green light to fuck us over
True.
because we don't hold them accountable. We vote, and then that's the end of it. We throw our hands up because our person is in office. But is that the end? They work for us. And I think somewhere along the line we forgot that.
I think there's a disconnect in politics in general. I
Mm-hmm.
think people don't understand the process.
I agree.
They don't understand that those elected officials actually work for us.
Right.
You know, even our president, God forbid, right now, doesn't understand that he is there to work for us,
Mm-hmm.
and you know his cabinet is not there to work for him.
Right. Right.
You know, that's happening at the highest levels, literally,
True.
of government. So there has to be some sort of understanding and education where people will say, look, this is how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you need to expect. You know, because I have issues with the whole political system anyway. I love politics.
Right.
You know, I definitely see a future in politics.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that there are some truths that, you know, we are traditionally now leaning as far as minorities towards the Democratic Party. I think we have been giving them our vote without holding them accountable for
Exactly.
many years.
Exactly.
And I don't think some people just don't know how to proceed and say, look, I need this done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the first thing that we need is to educate people. This is, if you're, something's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
this is how you proceed and changing it.
Right. Right. I agree. Quiet Storm.
I mean, you said a few things. I think when you started off saying that, like 30 years ago, there seemed to be more unity in our community. And I assume you're talking about the black community.
Mm-hmm.
I think 30, 40 years ago, I would go back more like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had more of a common enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have too much resources, so we had to rely on our own community. And I think now, when you look, we can't even agree to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because we're so diverse. We got different needs. Some of us came up, some of us haven't. We're stretched across a lot of socioeconomic levels now.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have somebody who that looks like me who might call themselves a conservative because of whatever reasons. I think idealistically, I think to me a conservative is probably having the same values as my parents did.
Right.
So pretty much, I might be a conservative, you know, at heart. I'm a registered Democrat, but you're right. I think we have been giving Democrats a pass for a long time. And I had a conversation with my father-in-law, who, and I said something about a long-standing delegate, senator, who represented our community, and he went on TV and said, on the Freddie Gray, he's saying, yeah, this district is hurting. We need this, we need that, and I'm thinking, man, this dilapidation or this stuff happened on your watch for years and years and years.
Right.
And that's what I had an issue with. This stuff that's happening in your community, resources and all that stuff, happened on your watch. So why do you keep getting perpetually voted back in? And he said something that kind of made me stop and think. He said we still need representation across both parties,
True.
Republican and Democrat, because people don't realize that the Democrats was the party of the lynching back in the Jim Crow style.
And that's true.
And
Yeah.
what made the change? We ended up changing that. We ended up we're talking about like in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, 68, we had, there was a crowd of racists running for Democratic.
It wasn't, and it's not even a generation ago.
No.
So now it's like everyone associate conservative, Republicans with the guy, but Lincoln was a Republican.
And Frederick Douglass was a Republican.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So the same way that we changed the Democratic Party by voting and being participating and having representation, we can do the same thing on the other side too.
Exactly.
Like a C.J. Watts and some of those other, what's his name? Who's a lieutenant governor, the black guy, Steele. People was people was giving him a hard time because he was a Republican. I said, no, we need representation on both parts.
We need a stronger independent party.
I agree. I
think
completely
these old
agree.
bastions of the government with this Republican Democrat, they're too cut and dry.
Right.
You know, because you have what they call Reagan Democrats, you know, conservative Democrats that are like, okay, I like, you know, I believe in this, but I do like this family values things, and you know, there's some things that both sides can agree on to a certain extent.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just mad at the fact that when I get to vote on Miss America contestant, it's 50 choices, but for president, it's only 2.
Right?
You know what I mean? Why can't I get 50 choices?
That's a very valid point. This confused the hell out of the people even more.
You know what I'm saying? Why you narrow down my choices to 2? Bad and less of 2 evils, you know, where, you know.
But that's what it comes down to when you're voting.
Beelzebub.
It's like the lesser of the 2 evils. And it really shouldn't be that way. I think I agree we need to do our own research and not just settle on what's put before us. And we have to, for ourselves, we have to know what's important to us. And is that candidate going to represent what's important to you? And so if you don't know what that is, isn't it kind of hard to select the right person?
But Jackie, the problem is us, because every year I say the same thing. I get on this soapbox where we get government shutdowns, we get all kinds of crazy stuff during the midterms that people forget the next year. Last year, what was the biggest thing?
Was it Social Security last year?
No, it was all them students marching in on the
Oh,
mall.
right.
About the gun violence. And people don't realize that they're going to be voting. These high school students are going to be eligible to vote in a couple of years. So the things that happened last year with the government shutdowns and Democrats and Republicans can't come to pass a law, so they're going to shut down the government. We forget the next year.
That's because our attention span is as long as the news
Exactly.
cycle.
But and you know that is absolutely true. And I've heard many people say this, that we as a people don't read enough. And as much as I resent that statement, it is a fact. Okay, you mentioned the college students. Well, what about the kids, the college students that go and then graduate and they come out with a mountain of debt? We're encouraging them to go to college, but then they come out and they're faced with all this financial, they're coming out of school bankrupt pretty much because they got to pay all this debt back, and they might not even have a job in their field.
True.
So I want to see that change. I mean, we're encouraging kids to go to college, but then they come out with a mountain of debt, and there's no recourse. There's nothing in place to help offset that. You know, they don't come out with a job, a lot of them. You know, so student loan is still going to be calling you, harassing you, and then that's the only debt that you can't really get rid of. You can't get a pass on that. So what can we do about that?
Well, I like what the mayor surprisingly has done with the free college over at VCCC. I thought that's a good start.
That's a start, yeah.
The governor did the same thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a start. We can't have these kids coming out with a mountain of debt and they don't have jobs. You know, so I'd like to see that drastically change across the board.
It's affecting many careers, like doctors.
Doctors, especially, yes, absolutely.
Go into the medical field because I'm going to have, $500,000 in debt.
Right.
I'm going to have, and then the insurance and the liability that you're faced with as well. It's like, why would I put myself way behind the curve?
Exactly.
At, 20-some years old.
Yeah, exactly. And then not only that, but credit card companies are like vultures on these college students. So they apply for credit cards, and for some that don't have any education on it, they're charging, and then that bill hits, and they're like, how am I going to pay this back? So then you got that on top of your student loan.
And newsflash for people who are paying the minimum on their credit card, that is set up that the average person, the average card that you're paying the minimum for, is going to take you 14 to 17 years to pay off that little bit of debt. For that little $2,000-$3,000, you're looking at 17 years of your life,
right,
paying them.
Unless you have an inheritance or something.
Because you're keeping just the minimum payment.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that when you're like, oh, I'll
And
just
then
give a little something.
Leverage that against the purchase that you made that incurred all those finance.
That's
Right.
finance
And
charge,
then you know
exactly.
once you get a little bit down, come Christmas time, they're going to say, hey, we're going to increase your line of credit.
Exactly, exactly. And you're right, Kimberly. She says that starts at home. But again, when I was coming up, some of us weren't taught financial independence.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have bank accounts.
They don't have bank accounts, Like I was just telling my son this. I've been working since I was 13. So when we had our summer jobs, we had to pay $50 a week for rent. And so what my mom did, that went into a savings account for us.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so, but her point was you can't live anywhere for free. That was my first lesson in responsibility. So ever since I worked, I had to pay rent. And I taught that same thing to my son, even though his argument was, but you're my parent. Why do I have to pay rent? Because you can't live anywhere for free.
You're being trained.
So you're being trained, exactly. So he was getting an allowance, and we made him put half his allowance into a savings account. We wanted him to start saving early. Now, but there are a lot of households that aren't teaching the children that. So you send them out into society ill-prepared. And then they get into all this debt, and they don't know what to do. Because chances are, your parents aren't in a position to help you get out of debt. So then what?
Yeah, that's a big problem. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people, I can think of several times I've had to show, adults how to write a check.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It's like, what do I do? It's like, I have a check, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Which I'm thinking, wow, no one showed you that. That's not good.
But that's a lot. Exactly. I agree. That's a lot of people.
A lot of people that
Yeah.
go to the check cashing place. They're like, no, I don't have a
And
bank
they're
account.
getting rich on them fees.
Yeah.
What is it? Probably like 2% or so. And some places probably more.
But they're giving
That's
out
my
that
lottery
check
money.
every time.
And this how a lot of brothers transferred from checking to savings.
From one pocket to the
Left
next.
pocket,
Oh my
right
God.
pocket. You know what? Saving. The banks aren't much better though, because I'm not gonna lie. I went to a bank and they're like, okay, we're gonna set you up a checking account and a savings account. I said, because this particular program, you had to have a savings account. I was like, okay, that's fine. But then they were like, well, then I thought about it. It's like, well, I'm going to take this program. I don't need a savings account because I have savings elsewhere. It's like, well, it gives you, this interest. I'm like, the interest now on a savings account is the same as on a checking account. It's like you're not getting a benefit now.
Right,
It's the same
exactly.
1%.
Exactly.
Like, why?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
I guess it's the concept of putting money away and forgetting that it's there. That's what savings is supposed. That's what.
Yeah.
you don't forget it's there.
That's what I'm saying. And how many of us are actually just able to forget that it's there?
You're gonna have to put that in like a CD or something where
Right,
you can't
exactly.
touch it for a period of time, because any given moment that savings account, now especially when you have a savings account that you can access with a debit card,
Exactly.
that's a problem. It's like, what's the point of that?
Yeah. Like I have a savings account through the credit union, but my credit union doesn't have a branch here. And I won't request an ATM card because the minute I get that card, I'll probably say, let me just take $40 out. And so they used to be here, but they moved to Minnesota, and I'm glad because I'm not going to say I don't think about it, but every time they call and say, oh, you want to apply for an ATM? Mm-mm. Because I'm going to go through it.
Yeah,
so
it
no.
makes it too convenient to change
It
your
makes
mind.
it, exactly. So for me, I have like my residual income from Aflac going into that account for a rainy day. So not today.
It rains quite a lot.
Right. But for me, that's what works, not having access to it. But whatever works for you, you have to do it. Like Kimberly said, yes. Kimberly says, I get cash back every time I use my debit card. They try to get me a different type of account. The banks will do that.
Yeah, I've been reading Kimberly's comments. She seems really savvy, financially savvy. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, getting back to the political side of things, do you think your vote counts?
I would like to say yes, and I do believe it counts. But I think
not in the past election.
I think they counted most of them. They just didn't count the 70,000. They picked some and said, "No, we're not going to count those." I think you know what? I'm feeling like the vote is the new 3/5.
Yeah, I think
kind of counting it, but the weight seems like it. I don't want to sound negative. I do believe in the voting process.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Are you scratching your head?
But I have a problem that we have, what is this now? When 40 years ago we could put someone on the moon, but we can't make a voting machine that works.
Exactly.
I saw this last week. Okay, and there's a point to this. Last week they voted on the best Mexican restaurant in the United States, and guess who won?
Taco Bell?
Taco Bell.
Are you serious?
Taco Bell. Because,
as a restaurant?
Yes, because they're nationwide.
Uh-huh.
The local Mexican restaurant that's here is not in California, so they got more votes. And so, I guess that's the reason why we got electoral college to kind of guide us to make the right decision.
But is it the right decision? I mean, if you are, and that's again where people have to do their research.
Explain that though.
Bring it out.
Taco Bell.
Taco.
Well,
I was just thinking that.
And I just told you what the people voted on.
I know.
You don't
So
even,
it must
even
Listen,
like
no,
it.
it must
right.
be true because that's what the votes say.
Because yeah, well,
not that they gave everybody 10% off. But,
exactly. How about that?
And Chipotle came second.
Yeah, that's the
Well,
Mexican restaurant.
and
why
also,
we
if we're
need
talking about Chipotle, they've had quite a few health scares.
Yeah.
So that probably had a lot to do with it too, because you haven't heard anything about Taco Bell with the health scares.
But Chipotle ain't no
No, but
Mexican restaurant.
Taco Bell had the fake meat.
But obviously, people like the fake meat.
And
If they
but you know what? They still eat Chipotle's even with the E. coli and whatnot.
right, because they're always crowded.
But you know what? People don't care. At the end of the day, it's like,
It
what
seems.
scandal has ever shut down any business like that?
But we all agree that Taco Bell is not the best Mexican
It's not the
restaurant.
best.
And any logical person would agree, right?
You would think.
Hopefully.
But there's a mass of people that believes that, right?
It could have been, but
So
it depends on where they might have
So
gone
it's
to a Taco Bell in
one Taco
California
Bell,
and
right?
said, we had 30 people vote.
Right, and it's unanimous.
So most of us will believe that our sitting president is not really fit, right? If you poll people, right?
Did they ask
Hello.
the Taco Bell people? Is that who voted him in?
Exactly. So I guess my point is maybe that's why our founding fathers believed that we should have electoral college because of like situations like that.
You know, but I see why people want to eliminate the electoral college, because the popular vote,
Mm.
you know, would have,
Yeah, I mean,
would have
LA,
changed
New
that
York. If you
situation.
carry the big
Right,
cities, you will win.
exactly.
you know, and it's total.
Yeah.
I can see something like the electoral, like they have with the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have this many people, so this is how much representation you have.
Mm-hmm.
I get that,
Right.
but I do think the popular vote should be the case, because it doesn't make sense to win the popular vote and lose the election.
Right. And then
So the gamesmanship comes in, and I
Yeah.
don't like gamesmanship.
right.
Or
In a
the
presidential
gerrymandering.
election.
Gerrymandering. Everyone knows what that means.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
when you
Yeah.
carve up the districts to include all the people
To tip the
Yeah,
scale.
to tip the scale.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what the people don't realize during when the Democrats were in had the House and the Senate.
Yeah, break it down a little bit more so people
when-
understand what
when
exactly.
when
happened.
Barack Obama
Yeah, like we're 4-year-olds.
when
Yeah.
Barack Obama was president for 8 years, I said 12 years, for 8 years, they knew that he was the most popular person, and they wasn't going to get him out of office. But they had the House and the Senate. So last 8 years, what they've done, which is perfectly on the down low, they redrew
course,
the lines
yeah.
of the district, which is perfectly legal. So they've been preparing for this particular election
Absolutely.
for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
I mean, for the last 8 to 10
And we
years.
didn't see it
And we
coming.
ain't see it coming.
Yeah.
So for people that don't understand, that means when you skew the map to fit the way you want it to fit.
Right.
So let's say, for example, they would take the map and draw it and say, we're going to take Green Spring, part of Towson, and put that all in one section and say, this is the people that represent you. This is your area.
Right.
And we'll take one little blip off on the side. So it's like you have an area that's actually should be represented in one way, but they're going to carve it up.
Mm-hmm.
So say, well, we want to say in this district, this is where it should be, so we have more presence there
Yeah.
for another side.
Like Elijah Cummings, right, from Maryland, he has west side of Baltimore and all the way out through Howard County.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? When
Yeah,
I vote,
and how is
when
that?
I vote, Elijah Cummings comes up on my thing, and I'm away out in Howard County. Same way that someone from the belly of the beast west side, you know, has the same representation.
Well, but Elijah
So-
Cummings is state.
He's
Yeah.
was he House of Representatives?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
so he would. I mean, yeah.
No. He's in Congress, but he represents that area of our state.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So that's the way that map is carved, and you wouldn't think that. I'm thinking more so West Baltimore. You know, that's
It
where-
used to
but
be.
right, but
Yeah.
he's all the way out to Howard County now.
And now, depending on who you get, sometimes that can be a benefit, because you have a part of an underserved population that has the benefit of people with resources
Right.
that they can piggyback off of if you have the person that remembers the underserved population.
And the minute that them people from the west side of Baltimore don't come out and vote, he can lose that.
That's true.
But and that's an interesting point that you make. But I tend to believe that, and we're going to use him as an example. You've been in that seat too long. Shouldn't there be a cutoff? Because what happens is people that have been in those seats for a long time, they stop doing shit because it's pretty much they're guaranteed that seat.
Well, yes
Why
and
they
no.
guaranteed?
They're not guaranteed. They have to run
But-
for the election. each
Right,
time.
but my thing is, I think there should be a cutoff. I'm not going to say he is as effective now as maybe he was probably 10 or 15 years ago. So shouldn't somebody else, have, or they should have an expiration date? You can't run anymore for this office.
I'm not sure. And the reason why I say that is it depends on their performance. if you're still performing, that's like, if you're at your job, it's like you're doing a good job, but you've been here for a while, so we're going to let you go.
Yeah.
Even though we like what you're doing.
Right, and I'm
But
not
we're just
saying,
gonna fire
right,
you.
I'm not saying to just, give them the heave ho, but when the area that you're representing is stagnant,
Then they have the responsibility of voting for someone else.
Right.
they do if there's somebody else running against them.
Somebody, but you know what? The particularly the Democratic Party, there's been all kinds of women this year that have no political experience that took the initiative to say, I want to make things different. I want to change, and they just jumped up and they're winning.
That's
of
one
course.
thing I've seen driving around. I've seen so many billboards of
Women.
Ali's, Khan's, and just names
Did they
that.
have a transgender person in Texas that won?
I
But
think
I'm
you're
just
right.
saying. I'm
Yeah.
saying locally.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen women come out. I've seen a lot more representation of people with not just common names. When I say common names, I see a lot of
Minority
Ali,
women. Yeah.
Indian.
And we need that.
Yeah, and it's
that's
so
who we
refreshing
are.
to see.
That's
But
our
Right,
community.
But the thing
exactly.
about it, we're getting back to Elijah Cummings. I think, he was the person I was kind of referring to earlier, and when I was talking to my father-in-law, he said, what we need. You see, he has a seat at the table. Yeah, there's some things that are lacking on a local level, but he actually has a seat at the table. He's part of
He is very well
committees.
respected.
He is, and I'm not taking that
And those
away.
big lobbying, like up on Capitol Hill, he's actively involved. I do have a problem with, but again, he's not. There's a overlapping of he's not the only person. There's people on the state and city level that's part of that same district, which that has to be held accountable too. But,
Right.
But Elijah Cummings, his presence on Capitol Hill is very, very important because, again, we have a seat at the table, and I think we need to have more people out there just to speak on our behalf.
And he is a seasoned seat.
So-
He knows
Yeah,
he
but I
can
do-
I
manipulate the
agree, but
political
is it
landscape.
enough to have a seat at the table just for the sake of saying we have a seat at the table?
I mean, he's not inactive by
I'm
any
not
stretch of
saying
imagination.
that,
We're
but
not seeing results.
how
We're not
often
seeing-
have you seen him out lately?
I see him on like MSNBC, and every time there's an issue going, he's there. I see him on the record.
I think just that there
You
because
know,
he has the
But
presence.
that's where
But
he's supposed
what
to be.
is he doing for the community now? I mean, I think that the district he represents, I think he's become stagnant in that community.
I'm not
I think
sure.
that when people are in a seat for a long time, that I think that there should be a cutoff, the same way there is with the
But,
presidency.
yeah, the presidency has cut off, but I mean, they have to win their election.
Right, and I get
And he
that,
has
but I'm
enough
just saying
people
that's one of the things
in
that
his
needs to
district.
be changed.
He has enough people in
Yeah.
his district that if they don't want him there, he won't be there.
I disagree. I think that he's familiar,
He's not
and
rooted,
that's
though.
why he's there.
He's not. I mean, he is rooted, but he doesn't. He could lose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if somebody
But-
comes up and calls him out on all the things he didn't do, like if Jackie, if you run and you put,
Someone always is trying to encourage me to go into politics.
I mean, they're going to roll these tapes and it's a wrap. Like,
Oh no, I'll
who's
get
that?
in front of my own issues.
Who's that
You
red?
know,
Who's that redhead delegate?
I'm not gonna be up
Miss
there
Na-
and
Mrs.
then say,
Nasty
"Oh,
Time.
tell us about Monica Lewinsky." No,
Look a little.
it's
Look,
not.
Like,
look,
love
I said,
her.
look, I said that, Jackie. Look how many likes you got.
But no, I mean I
have a
think to
problem.
be fair, I think that in some of these seats we need some fresh meat.
Then you know what? The option is go out there and vote.
Mm-hmm.
You know, put your name in the hat. You want to change, make a change.
Because Taco Bell ain't gonna change their meat.
Damn right.
Right, and I think as you know, as a voter, as voters,
That's a
we
profound
should
statement, bro.
educate. I'm not.
Taco Bell, they gonna change their meat. That's my mantra.
more meat. Anyway, I just
That's
went into
platform.
Ving Rhames kind of thing.
Lord
But
Jesus.
anywho, I think it's our responsibility to go out and educate ourselves. Don't just vote because a person is familiar. You know, it's your responsibility to see what have they done for your community lately. If you're just going on, they've held this seat for a long time, I'm going to vote for them because it's familiar, then I think you're doing your community an injustice. I think that you should arm yourself with as much knowledge as possible before you go into that voting booth.
And you know, I think people need to understand too that politics are still all local based.
Yeah,
You know, it begins from block.
of course.
Community
It's
organization.
all
Yeah.
community. It's like what if you have something on your street,
Mm-hmm.
you rally your neighbors, and you go to your representative. You know, you go to the mayor, you go to the governor, you go ahead and you work your process.
Right.
It all starts in the smallest level.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? People, you don't run. You know, not going to call up the president and say, "Fix my pothole."
when
You
you,
know what I
have
mean?
a local representative
Yes, there's a
to
process
assist
for
you.
everything.
Yeah.
Now, but I
And
agree
they
with
need
you,
to
though.
be available, you know, not to brush off. I call my local delegate's office and they're not returning my call. Now, I put you in that seat. So it's your responsibility to get back to me because you're representing my community.
Or I will
So-
take you out.
Yeah.
So you you reside in Baltimore County.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the two people running for executive?
I know Dolores Kelly. Oh, for county executive, Olszewski,
Olszewski.
yeah. And who else?
And the guy that passed. Then there was a guy that passed, right?
Kamenetz
Yeah.
passed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure somebody's filling in
Yeah.
for him, but I do like Olszewski.
Johnny
Yeah,
O.
I do like him, and I think that he has a good chance.
Yeah. We Howard County. We have an African American
Mm-hmm.
running for executive, and I got a chance to meet him because he was always pounding the pavement.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my son will actually talk to him. And of course, the sitting one is actually a Republican, so he's running as a Democrat. So
Okay.
we'll see what's going on.
Olszewski actually
Calvin Bowles.
participated
Okay.
in one of our Black Wall Street events. I wasn't expecting him there, but he showed up. I mean, again, it's election time, but he was approachable. You could,
Does he look like somebody you could vote for?
yeah.
Did he look,
I'm
did he
kind
look
of
presidential?
not presidential.
How was his suit?
Um,
He doesn't have a good suit.
So I like him. When you start talking about governor, I like Ben Jealous, but I do like some things about Hogan as well. But I actually had a chance to chat with Ben Jealous, and I love what he stands for regarding entrepreneurs. I love what he wants to do with the school system. And I think that somebody has to hold all this money we're supposed to receive for the school system from the lottery. They're not
in the casinos.
in the casinos, right? They're not doing it. So, and that was one of the things that he said he would hold the casinos, the lottery, those people accountable, because it is ridiculous that we had a school year and they had no heat. Again. Yeah, so where's the revenue from the casinos and the lottery?
And I know
They're
Ben
back
Jealous.
in Russia.
And I know
Okay.
I know Ben Jealous probably tuning in because, like you said, he's a good friend of the show. Ben Jealous, I just have one question. Why are you letting them talk about you like that? I want to see more ads.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Are you Marylanders still paying, what
The
is
rain
it?
tax.
That rain tax?
No,
Are
we're
they?
not. No, he took that off. He
Okay.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Hogan
Yeah.
took away. Hogan. Let me see. He didn't raise the Easy Pass tolls. No more rain tax.
But the
And-
tolls are high as hell.
Yeah, but every year they used to go up. And
Yeah,
they
but
stopped.
I mean, it's like $8 now. Like, going towards Delaware.
Yeah, it was no increase.
Yeah.
So he stopped that, and we're going to school after Labor Day. So my kids my kids are going to vote for him because
They got an extra week. When I was young, though, we always went back after Labor Day.
know.
Yeah. So they should have never changed that.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah, that was just. I think
I'm a
that
fan
fell
of that.
on Penderhugh's watch. Yeah. So.
But I don't know. I mean, the thing about Hogan, he surprised me. It's not many things. It's not many negative things I could really say which moved me. That's why I want Ben Jealous camp to keep
To
him
step
honest.
up, yeah.
To step up and like, okay, they doing some smearing kind of ads, which I don't appreciate, but he's taking the high road. But it's only 6 weeks left.
Yeah, but I think, and I do admire that. You don't have to play the same game that everybody's playing.
Yeah, but how does that help the Democrats?
Well, I don't think Obama did a lot of smearing.
I mean, he was.
He took the
good.
high road on quite a bit.
It was good.
Who
And
did
this
he run
last
against?
time he was.
He ran against two people that were class acts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He ran against Romney and he ran against McCain.
McCain,
Who
yeah.
were, it wasn't.
Yeah,
Well,
you can't say no.
They were.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Romney still respected.
You know, I didn't like the whole that one comment of McCain.
But I use that a lot. I do use that a lot.
But you know, he did say, you know, when the lady was like, yeah, he's a Muslim, he's a man, he's not there, he's a family man.
Right,
he's a
he
good
spoke
guy.
up for him. That was a
he
class
just,
act.
Yeah, I respected him.
Yeah.
And that's when
He
the
was
first,
a smart guy, though. I mean, as far as politics and.
yeah, he had a bad choice.
But,
in the
but
running
it's
mate.
funny how
Yeah,
perception,
true.
because he was kind of like that radical, wacky guy. But now you compare him to what we got now, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
The orange guy.
Yeah.
You know, when you really think Bush wasn't that bad, that's when things are really.
That's when
really
it's
wrong.
bad, exactly. Because even I had to go back and say, well, you know, he was an idiot
take-
sometimes, but he wasn't that
I'm gonna take
bad.
Bush over him in a heartbeat.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
Come on, Romney. There's somebody. Any of those
Somebody,
other than-
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's scary.
It's definitely scary, and you shouldn't go to the polls and say, "I'm going to vote for the lesser of the two evils."
But that's what we.
But
Yeah,
because I think
kinda
that's what
forced
happened.
that
Yeah.
Hillary thing, and I mean, I'm not saying that she was not eminently qualified. She was probably the most qualified candidate ever,
Yeah.
but she
was funny,
did
Kim.
not resonate with the people. You know, it's just. I mean, you
And
can,
this
you
one
can
did?
try to dab and get, you know, have a concert with Jay-Z and Beyonce, but that still doesn't mean that
That you're
the people
cool.
are with you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
And I don't hate her.
And you know,
She was okay.
yeah,
But
she
I
was
understand
okay.
why people didn't warm up to her.
Well,
Yeah.
I
I
think,
voted for her. But
I think
you know.
I think America wasn't ready for a woman president, because if you put her credentials with any man,
Oh yeah,
it'll be
she
a
is
wash.
far.
And that's the
exceeds
tragic thing
credentials.
about it.
It
Do you
is.
think it's that, or do
I
you
think
think
that's
that
all it
she
was.
lost credibility when she lied?
A lie
Because
about what?
America is not. Sometimes we're not always forgiving, and it's
We got Trump.
right. But
He's
listen,
lied over
but she was a
2,000 times.
woman, and I think that first of all, Trump.
You said it right.
I didn't I? Trump
Freudian.
played on people's fears. And I believe that's what really got him in. Now, the lie that Hillary told, and it's not even about the emails. You know, you were, what was she supposed to be in Iraq? And she was in the midst of gunfire, but she wasn't.
Oh, her and Brian Williams.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people looked at that like, woman, you was nowhere near it, and you lied about something like that. And we live in a day of technology. You didn't think that would come out?
But you know, he
But
had
today-
Mr. Grab him by the coochie. But the
today-
thing is, to me,
True.
it's because, bottom line is because she's a woman.
And he just fired
Because
his
he gets a pass for
he
anything.
just fired his assistant district attorney today. You know, and
Wow.
every time he does something, because I follow Hillary on Twitter. She goes, but my emails though.
Right?
It's hilarious.
That's the problem. It's the fact is
Tweeting,
that
but my emails though.
we still
Right.
have this misogynistic society.
It
where
is.
We're
It
not
really
giving a woman
is.
a chance. It's like, you're cool as long as you're not my boss.
Yeah,
You know
but
what I
and
mean?
it's in all industries across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
America still hates women.
Yeah, exactly. As much as, I mean, you have
Okay.
women in, high positions. However, it's how they had to get there, and once they're there, their fight continues.
Yeah.
Everything they decide is questioned more so than if that same decision came from a man.
Exactly, and particularly with this nomination for the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell
They're
you.
just automatically saying, well, she should have reported it earlier, and they're questioning her
That might be my person.
as someone who's
Hello?
been a victim.
This is she.
That's right, she can do
Hi,
that.
how are you?
Ladies and gentlemen, she can do that because
Are you here?
she's queen.
Are you here?
So as I was telling you, sir, I guess we should keep it going.
I'm downtown. I'm actually doing the show. It's so funny. I am.
But,
We're
she's
right
not
across
gonna,
from Terra Cafe.
keep it moving and whatnot. So we're going to go ahead and talk. As I was saying, right?
Right.
They're automatically going to the negative for this lady that's saying, look, he
you're
sexually
fired.
assaulted me. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But
goodness.
they
No,
automatically
no,
assume
no.
he's innocent
30
and that
minutes.
she's lying.
He gets the benefit of the
He
doubt.
gets the
right.
benefit. Women never get the benefit of that,
True.
especially something as
we can
serious
still work it
as
out.
a sexual assault.
Well,
That's a problem to me.
well, look.
Okay, thanks.
Barack Obama couldn't have gotten away with 1/8 of the things that he got away with
Not
because he
one
had to.
thing.
He had to be squeaky clean. He had to have
Absolutely.
no stand. The only thing they could talk about as far as Michelle Obama, she wore a sleeveless dress.
And he
You know.
wore a brown suit.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
And
is so, that has
here's
nothing to do
here-
with the
here His
job.
first lady ain't even his first lady.
Right?
And here she, the things that she's doing. So like I
She
said, I
didn't
think
even,
it was
there was some no suits on. She was butterball
Right,
the baby's ass
exactly.
naked in pictures.
And I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna drop the mic with this. If women were leaders of the world, if women were leaders of every known country, we would not have any war. Anytime they have a beef, we just have a whole bunch of countries not talking to each other.
Well, isn't that better than people dying?
But see, it's crazy though because we have women leaders in other countries.
Yeah.
Merkel is running things. She's strong.
Right now.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on. Why is it a problem?
Right. I think, and I guess maybe men find women intimidating in a lot of cases, or think that we're too emotional to run a country, or
I don't know if there's intimidating if there's no respect. You can't be intimidated by someone you have no respect for.
but on the flip side of that, is it a lack of respect or a lack of or intimidation? And here's why I say that. We're very powerful. There's no way a man can do some of what we can or bear some of what we go through. And yet, men find it necessary to make decisions about women.
Because men, the men aren't intimidated. I don't think. I think they don't
I have to
acknowledge.
disagree.
These
I have
guys,
to disagree.
these old guys up there they can't be intimidated by something they don't acknowledge.
Well, they don't look at it, but to say they're not intimidated, I don't know.
It's
I'm
like me
kinda
being
gonna have
intimidated
to-
by this crackhead
this,
outside. You know what I mean? Like if I don't acknowledge that you're there dancing in the street, you know what I mean? I'm not paying you any mind, so you can't intimidate me because you don't exist. That's the problem. They don't even see
No,
women.
but you say don't exist, but if we didn't exist, then men wouldn't refer to us or look at us as just sexual objects. That's how you minimize us, because that's all you see. You don't see the woman with the brain, the woman that's probably smarter than you, or you just look at, you kind of diminish our power by
Right,
making it
and
sexual.
And that's why they can't be intimidated because they don't acknowledge it.
But they are when they minimize your power. You're more than just a sexual object. So they
You know
are
that,
looking. No, but they
this
know
average
that
Republican
too.
guy
That's
doesn't. I don't even think they
he
know that.
knows it. It's just that for him, I think his thought process is that that's all they are, is sexual objects. I can't see them as anything such.
There you go.
And
they
that-
can't see
Yeah.
them. as
But
right,
it
you're
still
right.
Because he
comes
said
down
that-
to being intimidated.
And bullying, because he
Exactly.
said it on the campaign trail. He talked about her health. He talked about whether or not she was healthy enough to stand the rigors of a campaign trail. What did Hillary do? She took a nap. She's sick for 2 days. She took 2 days to prepare for this debate. Talking about stuff that's not irrelevant. Not
Because-
talking about what her credentials are.
Right.
He brought up things that, and guess what? The people bought into it because there's
Exactly.
that silent majority
And
of
why do people
Americans
believe into it?
that still believe that.
Why they buy into it? Because they say guys are here
Yep.
and women are there, and they're not.
Absolutely.
And that's the easiest thing to do.
We
It's
haven't
just
evolved.
They do
we
it with,
haven't
but,
evolved.
But the powers that be, if it's call it one race or whatever, that's in charge, did that to every socioeconomic group that was underneath them. Black man, okay. Oh, he's not smart, but he's gifted athletically. You minimize the fact that you can't have both.
Exactly.
You women, oh, she's too emotional to stand the rigors of making big decisions in pressure situation like a man would. Whatever it is.
And
that's
see,
what
but
they do.
but I think it all comes down to the basic animal instincts. They were afraid. They're definitely afraid of black men. Not because they won't say this guy is smart or whatever. It's like he can kick my ass and might be with my woman.
Right.
That's the basal animal instinct thought that they're having.
Right.
They're not having that with the women because it all boils down to I'm stronger than you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You can't beat me.
Right.
So that's it. All comes to the basic animal level. So the intelligence and everything else, they throw that out the window. I don't care because you can't beat me, and that's how they judge things. That's why they'll just minimize a woman, but they'll look at another man of a different race as a threat because of the physicality, not because of their intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad, but that's the way animals act.
Yeah. So, by the way, my guest is running a little late. He'll be here at 8:30. Anyway, I gotta just kind of give y'all a shout out because y'all kept it going. And I think it was some shade thrown out there
Just a little.
from Mr. Sensational
Opportunity
because,
knocking out right
yeah,
through the damn thing.
but I didn't care about that. I was just so proud that y'all went with it anyway.
Let me ask y'all: Who do you see for the Democratic nomination for president?
In 2020?
2020.
Yeah.
Cory Booker? Why not?
And who?
He
I'm gonna
put
tell
a
you what
woman
I'm
on his
thinking.
ticket.
Who I think is going to go? I
Chick
think
from
it's going to
Atlanta.
be
Lady from Atlanta?
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
We got
Wow.
both
Joe
of-
Biden ain't getting back into it.
I think he is. I think he's.
They
dancing
keep toying around with it.
because
Yes.
Joe Biden is the one guy that can go head to head with Trump.
Anybody can go to head to head with Trump.
No,
But-
because Trump got those. The problem with Trump is it's not about being smart. It's not about being smart. It's about being tough. Okay, and people, those 32% love Trump because he talks tough, even if he's an idiot.
Well, they know he's an
Biden
idiot.
is going to pull back Pennsylvania. Okay, they love Biden.
They love him.
And I told my family, I was like, when Obama was about to run, I said, I guarantee you he gets with Joe Biden because he needs a tough talking white man that knows his stuff to be with him to win this election.
Yeah, he was an insider. He helped him.
Yeah.
Biden,
He was a Washington
he
insider.
knows international policy, and he's like the good side of Trump. If Trump was a
Right.
good guy,
It's all a
It'd
moot
be
point.
Biden.
Biden ain't getting back into that.
Biden is
He's
getting
gonna,
back in.
He's gonna
He's gone.
ride off into the sunset.
I don't
he's
think he's
gone.
riding off.
He's going there. They've been asking him, and he's been playing the game.
So they've been asking Oprah too, the same thing.
No,
man.
Oprah said no. Biden's
I can
going. It's going to
see-
be him and Kamala Harris. It's going to have a black woman who's smart and
Or
tough.
Biden and Obama.
Nah, I'm telling you, he's going to pick because
But
they
Obama
want
doesn't want it
to get
anymore.
a woman in there, and I think
Yeah.
they should. And I think she's the one that can do it.
I don't think Trump is going to get outside the Republican Party. Is it possible for him not to get the nomination as a sitting president? Is that?
I
Well,
think
he
he'll get the
automatically
nomination
He'll get
because
He automatically
he's
gets
got
it.
I
everybody.
think
He
he's
has a
automatic.
locked in 30%. Period.
Okay.
He's got a locked in. You know what I mean? All the dregs.
But the
Yeah.
bottom line, we need to get out and vote next week.
Yes.
I mean, not next week, next month, because
Next
these
month.
midterm elections are very important. Democrats historically do not come out and vote. Women, Democrats, young people do not historically come out and vote during the midterms. And that's when we've been losing all these seats.
Yeah.
This is true.
Everyone wants to come out during the presidential election year and vote, but people do not realize how important it is to
That
vote during the
this-
midterm. Historically,
True.
like I said, Democrats don't come out. So anytime you have people's ear, you have to let them know that because we don't go out.
Okay, and that's true. And I think it's important that to understand that, okay, you might be a registered Democrat, but it may be a representative from the Republican Party that you connect with. You're not obligated to vote for the party that you're registered with.
You just can't
Please
vote in the
understand
primary.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shoot, I will vote for. I ain't gonna lie. I will vote for a Republican in a heartbeat if he or she addresses me and my family's needs.
Yeah, exactly.
like I said, I think it's
about the most qualified person.
I think it's a situation where we need representation on both sides of the party. Forget about this this two-party thing. We need independence in there as well.
Right.
I do, but you know, I'm concerned now, and the reason why is that I've seen how the Republican Party just, for lack of a better term, they just bitched up
Yeah.
behind Trump. They know he's wrong. Yo.
Right.
They know people are hurting because of this guy, and they don't have the nuts to say, you know what, I'm going to hold him accountable for his bullshit. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm very hesitant. I can't even say I'd vote for the Republican person who sounds like they're best going to fit my needs, because they're going to bitch up to the president.
Do you think it's that?
Because they're too
I
more
feel
concerned
like
with being, out of all the people they have, not one of, even guys like Flake and them that, okay, yeah, we're going to say, yeah, I don't like what he's doing, blah, blah.
Right,
You're
right,
on your
right.
way out.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So you don't care.
You don't care. There's nobody in there that is not concerned more about their position. And the last person who was died.
Yeah.
He's gone now. So there is not a single Republican out there with the fortitude to say, you know what, I'm going to hold this guy to task,
Yeah.
because this would not have gone this far. And it disturbs me that now we have this vote coming on for the what do you call it, the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You have two women there that are hedging. I'm like, he has an accusation of rape. Okay, whether
Yeah.
you have to at least hear this lady out. You know, when you have to at least have the investigation. You have to at least give her a chance to
Because
say
this is a lifetime
a
appointment.
lifetime.
Yeah.
This
Now,
is an appointment that does not have any
there's
terms.
no term
You're
until
there
they
until
die.
you die, unless you retire. And you're
Exactly.
talking about people who is you're talking about a man who is being will be able to rule over a woman's right to choose when he didn't even respect a woman's right to choose in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Hello.
You know what I'm saying?
That's real stuff.
It's
That's real
real
stuff
stuff,
right there. And
absolutely.
I expect, if anybody, those two ladies to say, you know what, there's a problem here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't sit there and say, well, I'm pro-choice or pro-life, what,
Yeah.
and then you turn around
And
and
I don't
you
care.
let this happen.
And to be
Right.
honest,
You
I
have to at
don't
least
care.
put the brakes on it.
I don't care if
Yeah.
he was 17 years old. Even if he was 17, of course, I'm not the same person I was 17 years
Yeah,
old.
none of
You know
us
what I
are.
mean?
Yeah.
But own up to it, apologize, make reparations or whatever. Don't just dismiss this woman because of, okay, you're 17 and people. I'm hearing people say, why are you going to hold a man accountable for something he did when he was 17? Trayvon Martin, he wasn't even 17.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So, whatever happened, validate her concerns, because obviously she had issues with it
There's
as
something
an
wrong.
adult.
And she is a
And then
credible
you saw
person.
then you
Right.
saw a pattern after, because it happened when he was in high school. Then he went to college and did the same thing. So there is a pattern. And is he the same man now? I probably don't think so. I don't know. I don't care.
It's
Right.
possible
But-
because he's on record as lying as a judge. You know, they caught him in the lie about this whole, you know, this torture.
Right.
I had nothing to do with it. I know nothing about it. Why is your name on there?
Exactly.
Why are you at that meeting?
Yeah.
You're a liar, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You lied, and now you're going to tell me, "Oh, I didn't touch that lady. I don't know who she is." Get out
Yeah,
of
it's
here with
about
Yeah, but I don't see-
accountability.
that.
And the thing about it is this appointment was supposed to have been Obama's appointment, but they
Yes.
campaigned and lobbied and said no, he's a lame duck president, so he should not. Well, let's wait till the elections. So they denied him the right to make an appointment,
Mhm.
and he had to go along with it.
Yeah.
But that was Obama's appointment, and now this comes up and you still want to rush it through.
That's because one thing Trump did that they love is he backfilled more judges
Yeah.
than the last 3 presidents combined. He's been slowly putting them all the antics are going on in the front end, on
Yes.
the back, and they're like, get this judge over here, get this
Right.
judge
He
over here.
firing district attorneys and all this stuff, and he firing prosecutors and all this stuff. Anybody going? It's like I never, I never seen this kind.
This kind of chaos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're only halfway through.
And so, for that reason, I cannot support anybody in the Republican Party.
But my
because
emails
they're
know.
not stepping up.
But now, let me ask you. I love that.
But my emails
Um, Do you think they're not, or you know, they're not standing up to him because there's a bigger picture?
Yeah, their paycheck.
Not just that, I do believe when they get him, that's this guy again, that they're really going to get him. They don't want any complications.
They could have had him already.
Hi, Cory.
The problem that I'm telling
Okay, all right. Ring the second doorbell so I can buzz you in. All right.
the problem that they're having is that they could have done this a long time ago.
Yeah,
We don't need all these twists and turns. Get the man. He's done something wrong. Hold him to task.
Exactly.
Don't play games with it. You know what I mean? And that's my problem. Is like no one wants to be accountable for his actions.
I think the Republican Party in as a whole is divided. They're in a shambles, and that's why I think any person could run against him and fare well, because now that we saw him perform, no one how are you going to follow up with a re-election?
Yeah, but you see that
But you can't assume that.
the crazy thing is that now that when he goes out and he stumps for people, it's actually to their benefit.
Yeah, true.
All right. Have a seat.
Hello, how are you?
How you
All right.
Mark,
Cory McCray. It's great to see you.
So, we have with us tonight Delegate Cory McCray. Of course, he almost knocked himself unconscious coming up the steps.
Low bridge.
It is.
So we're glad to have him here. And actually, tonight, for you, because of you, we were talking politics
Okay.
and talking about how our community can be more educated on the candidates that are running, and talking about Mr. Trump and how we can empower our community and how we can work together with elected officials to make that happen.
Yep.
So, just introduce yourself and then you can dive right in.
No, I just like to say Cory McCray, represent the east side of Baltimore City in the House of Delegates. January will be sworn in as the senator, and I 100% agree with you. Politics is so local. Like, I tell folks that I just started voting about 10, 12 years ago. I'm an electrician, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm an elected official, so say the 3 E's. But that entrepreneur part is so important because what happens, most of us, and my attitude early on was, if they leave me alone, I'll leave them alone. But what you realize is that politics surrounds everything that we do. So if you want your streets repaved, you know who you got to call? Your elected official. If you're talking about your schools, if you're talking about trash being picked up, you're talking about so many things that fundamentally just affect our lives on a day-to-day basis. It all revolves around elected officials. And then you have those three levels of government. So you have the federal, state, and local. And I feel like those local elections are so important when we have the right council person, the right delegate, the right senator, because these are the nuts and bolts that are working in our communities. So if you, and the reason why I would say in politics, so when you think about the city of Baltimore, and we think about the most challenging districts in the city of Baltimore, you have the 7th, the 9th, the 12th, and the 13th. So this is where most of our crime is, this is where most of our unemployment is, these are most of where our vacant homes is. And if you don't have strong council people in those 4 councilman districts, when you have 14, so 4 versus 14, that's plaguing the social ills and kind of spreading out into everybody else's district, we have to make sure that we have strong people there. So when you talk about those local levels, I really, really, truly think that it does matter who we have in those places. In a lot of these elections, you know, when you think about a congressional election, you're talking about $1 million. When you're talking about a senator, United States senator election, you're probably talking about $4 or $5 million. When you talk about a presidential election, you don't even want to talk about how much it costs. But when you talk about the councilmatic district, you're talking about somewhere between $30,000 to $50,000. When you talk about a delegate, you're talking about $50,000 to $70-some thousand. Sometimes cheaper. When you're talking about a senatorial race, you are talking about $100,000 or less. And I say that because a lot of these local elections, I remember my friend Shannon Sneed ran in the 13th district, one of them challenging districts that we talked about, and she lost that election by 30-some votes. When it was election day, it was 13, and when the absentees, it was 30-some votes. And when you talk about the ills that plague our neighborhoods, and you talk about 13 people deciding that election, the future of that district, the future of our city, I think is so important. We watched it in Baltimore County. I think my buddy Johnny O only won by like 6 votes or something like that election day, and then it looked like it spread after the recount. But those future for those positions are so important. So you're absolutely right when you talk about local politics.
That's a good point, because we had a question. We had a debate. Does each vote count? And I ain't gonna call nobody out. But
I asked that question. Does your vote really count?
So here's a situation where you said on a councilmatic level, on the local level, 13.
13. It's sad.
It's like 3 households.
Yep. And one of the things is when you're the candidate, one of the things is that you're always thinking about, was it more that I could do? One of the things is when you're a strong supporter, was it more people that I could talk to? And you don't want to be in those situations where elections are decided at those close of margins, whether your vote matters. I worked on this one bill. I just did my first 4 sessions in the House of Delegates, and one of the most important things was voting rights. So those folks that's on parole or probation just had the first time to be able to vote was in 2016.
Really?
But we led on that issue. We were the primary sponsor on that issue. So one of the things that I think about is there are 40,000 people on parole or probation in the state of Maryland. A large percentage of them are in Baltimore City. And then when you talk about neighborhoods where these people are on parole or probation, let's just take 2 zip codes from the city of Baltimore. When you look at 21210, which is like the northern part, the Roland Park and over there, you had how many people on parole or probation?
Less than 1%.
10. 10 people in the entire zip code on parole or probation.
Wow.
Let's take one that I represent, 21213. You know how many? 937.
Okay.
So when you try to put that type of disparity, 10 versus 937, and you ask elected officials say they pay attention to everybody, but that's not true. Elected officials pay attention to people that vote and communities that vote. So when you have such a large constituency of people in a community that can't vote, even if you faithfully go to the booth, you're indirectly impacted by your next door neighbor that even if he or she wanted the opportunity to vote, they didn't have it until 2016. Probably one of the biggest things I'll work on in my lifetime. But when we talk about some of the social ills that plague our community and those that are disenfranchised, this is one of the metrics. Because you got to think, that person, that him or her that's on parole or probation, they have a son or a daughter. and their son or daughter is going to one of our schools, and you think that that person don't care about Baltimore City air conditions and heating and air conditions, you think they don't care about the transit, you think, one of the challenges that I say, even though the disparity in zip codes, one of the other things that I thought about was the income tax part of it. So even though they're on parole or probation, you know what they still do? If they work, they still pay income taxes. If they go shopping, they still pay a sales tax. If they own a home, they still pay property taxes. So even though we're disenfranchising them from their vote, they still have to pay these taxes that all of us still pay. And these arbitrary barriers that are set up were for black and brown people. It's just ways that you figure out to remove them from out the system that we call the democratic process.
Interesting. Now, the structure in Baltimore City, is that set up by zip code, or is it actually set up by districts where you can gerrymander and redistrict?
So I laid out local, state, and federal. So now I'll start from the bottom. So you have 14 councilmatic districts. You have 14 council people and a council president. On the state level, you have 5 1/4 districts. So I represent the 45th legislative district. We say the East Baltimore. Currently sitting in the 43rd legislative district. So we have one district that's kind of Baltimore County, and a third is in Baltimore City. Mm-hmm. And then you have your federal. We actually have 3 federal reps, which would be Dutch, Elijah, and Sarbanes, all represent some portion of the city.
Yeah, and it's sort of like Baltimore City is like kind of carved in different, like parts of Baltimore is carved out, where like not one, like Baltimore is not one district on any level, right?
Yeah, so you have 14, you got 5 or 6, and then you have 3. So moving up to different levels.
Okay, here's a tough question.
Yeah.
Why? Because you got Baltimore City, most people with the same. You have one area, one which is Central Maryland. That's what Baltimore City's look. You know, with pretty much the same type of issues and values and concerns.
Yep.
Why is it carved up?
Carved out on which level?
Elijah Cummings level.
Okay.
Because we were talking about that because I'm in Howard County.
Okay,
right?
yeah, and Elijah represents a portion of Howard County.
Portion of Howard County and West Baltimore.
Yep.
And you're looking at two different areas with different needs or different values.
Yep.
Why?
So one of the things is that I just like to start from the beginning. Every 10 years, there's a census that's done to tell how many people are in a respective jurisdiction, neighborhoods, and things like that. So we'll have our census, I believe 2020 or something like that. We're actually gearing up for it. And that is what dictate our state and our federal lines. Our local lines are decided on a local level, but that is what dictates our state and federal lines. And then when you have these jurisdictions, the map is actually decided by the state government. So I gotta explain that to folks that may not know how these things come about.
Okay.
So in reference to congressional districts, say your name again, Roland.
Richard.
So in reference to congressional districts, what Richard is talking about is on the federal level, which the state actually decides. And what happens is the state is a majority Democratic, and when you're supposed to be deciding these lines, it's supposed to be making sure that we have ethnicity breakdown, very similar traits within certain things. Sometimes it can be income, it can be a variation of different things. Mm-hmm. So he asked the question in reference to Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings used to represent a larger portion of Baltimore City. So we've always had possibly 3 that I know of. But you see, Elijah Cummings has pushed more towards Baltimore County and Howard County. I think that Dutch came more into the northeastern part, and he represents like Harford County and Baltimore County. And then Sarbanes represents a great bit. I think that they say the 3rd district is probably one of the most interesting parts because he has Montgomery, Baltimore, and Baltimore City. But the reality is that a lot of it is done between politics. That is a part of politics. That is a part of why races are important. And what happens is those that are in charge deem it that this could be beneficial to whether it's the Democratic Party, and whether you're down south, it's the same thing that's going on with Republicans. But I know that we've put forth things in the General Assembly to try to semi-address the issue, but redistricting is one of the challenging things that we dealt with. Some of the things that have been put forward is when you're talking about state and federal, you got 2 different things. Even though the state legislature draws both maps, when you're talking about doing the federal level, you have all these other states that's now involved in this process. So one of the things that we tried to do was a compact that basically said, I think Pennsylvania is like 10 other states. When they say, hey, we'll move in this direction, then Maryland would move in that direction. But we can't say we're going to go first and then put in jeopardy one of our Democratic seats or two of our Democratic seats is the way of thinking. So it's very political in reference to that redistricting part.
Wow, I had no idea.
It's a lot. It's a lot of moving pieces in it, because you got to think that as we look at this upcoming midterm election in November, we're thinking about how to capture the seats. You got to think, and I'm not usually as partisan, but I do understand the politics of it. When you have the House, the Senate, and the White House, that's a tough position to be in, and there's a lot of stuff that can fly through. You look at the nomination of Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, one of the most widely publicized, talked about things right now. They already had the votes. It's more about strategy, just to either slow it down. And a lot of times when you hold that power, we've never did appointment before the midterms. Historically, this has always been after the midterms, but the Republicans are pushing it down our throat because they are in a position of power.
Wow.
Wasn't that Obama's appointment?
Kavanaugh?
Yeah, no, not Kavanaugh, but he was supposed to. It was on his during his. That's when the seat became vacant during Obama's term, right?
I think it was one that was it was one that just got appointed to Kavanaugh. So somebody just stepped back. I can't think of the person that was very controversial too. Yeah. But even when Obama had it, he didn't. What happens is we'll say Democrats are soft. So like if you put enough pressure on them, they'll buckle and they won't do what the Republicans do. And the Republicans are just like, they'll hold steady. Like, nope, you know what, I'm doing it. I don't care what you say. We're going to do it.
Government. We don't care.
We don't care.
Right.
So it does get interesting, but it's a part of politics, is what we signed up for.
So we have a question in the group for you.
Yes, ma'am.
So Antonio Arthur, by the way, he remembered when you were running for delegate because you were campaigning the 1300 block of East Biddle Street.
Okay, I'm telling you, I put in that footnote.
Right. So his question is, he lives in the county, but what would be the benefit of him moving back into the city?
So one of the things that I think about the city is that a lot of people say, hey, I'm out here helping the city, but you know where they live at. They live in our surrounding jurisdictions. So our population is actually decreasing. Those that actually have the resources to be able to stay here, such as myself, I could live anywhere in this state, but I still choose because I love this city.
Right.
When you think about our young people and our education, as we think about these other attractive jurisdictions, what that is that's pulling out of our pool for our schools. But what does the city have to offer? One of the things that I would think about is that we do have a nightlife. Everybody would agree that we do have a nightlife.
Right.
A lot of these jurisdictions are trying to invest to become competitive in reference to like shopping, restaurants, and things of that nature. We do have that. We have the National Aquarium. We got the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. We got the National Blacks and Wax National Great Blacks and Wax Museum. So we got a lot of different cultural institutions. We have our colleges and universities for all those young people, and I think that's one of the opportunities that we can take to build on our population for those people that are coming from New Jersey, New York, other places, to be able to capture those and say, how can we get you to stay? I think that we could also make sure that it's more friendly towards taxes. So that's one of the things that I think about. Is, I know that under Mayor Pugh, SRB was talking about like rolling, or they have implemented where they're very minor rollbacks for those that are primary homeowners for their property taxes, but make it more desirable from a money standpoint and not be in someone's pocket all the time.
Okay. So you have your answer. So why politics, Cory? What motivated you to go into politics?
Yep, I always tell folks, so I'm an electrician. I went through a 5-year apprenticeship program with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been purchasing homes up and down the Bel Air Road corridor since I was 20. And one of the things that I would have liked to see is for other good people to be able to go into it. So when I brought up Shannon Sneed and that loss, that was it for me. One of the things that I realized was that, I read this one book, and it was a great quote in there. It said, if those that have the heart and the knowledge to run for office fail to do so, everyone else will. And one of the things that I think about was I saw a person that was thoughtful. She had worked the hardest, but a machine had told her it wasn't her turn. And one of the things that I did was I just became frustrated by the machines that we had in place that wouldn't let people cut through that I knew were better for the position. And when you do that, you could either yell about it, you could jump up and down about it, you could fuss about it, or you could actually do something about it. So what I tried my best to do was just to put a plan forward and show people the discipline that it takes to go onto the 1300 block of Middle Street, knock doors, because we knocked on about 15,000 doors to get into the House of Delegates. We raised about $60,000 to be able to get into the House of Delegates, and we raised small and large dollars. But be able to put together that vision and clearly show people the path to be able to cut through the machine. We did that in 2014. I worked on about 5 councilmatic races in 2016, and we won 4 out of those 5 councilmatic districts. So you asked, what's the need for politics? I just want to see, and I love my city, but I want to see my city change in the right direction. And I believe that that's not going to be done by one person, but a group of thoughtful people that we have in these positions of leadership that make sure that the basic needs, the basic services that we all should get are just functioning in the city. It's like if I pick up and I call my councilman, I want to be able to talk to him. Even when I had a misunderstanding, you know what I did? I just made every attempt to address the misunderstanding. People are going to understand mistakes, but they're not going to understand when you don't even respond.
Right. And that was one of the things we discussed. I said I should have the right to call my delegate and receive a return phone call.
At a minimum.
Because, because my vote put you in that chair.
It's customer
So
service.
Exactly. So do you think that sometimes elected officials that's been in a seat for quite some time, do you think that they become complacent?
I think that I absolutely agree that I would say that they get comfortable.
Yeah.
And you have to, I always say competition is great. So if somebody run against me in 4 years, all they do is sharpen me up. So either I'm going to win or I'm going to lose, but that's what we need. We need competition. When we don't have competition, we get relaxed, we get comfortable, we're not performing at the same standard, and that's what we saw in our city. A bunch of folks that were just relaxed and not moving the city forward. We weren't having thoughtful ideas, just being innovative, creative, and just pushing ourselves to that limit. I think that we had it at one point, and one thing that I really, really desire is, I think that it was at one point, probably the 80s, maybe the early 90s, where you could just touch your councilperson, your delegate, your senator. You see them on the street. It ain't like you gotta shoot this thing. It's like, no, like, I call you back that within 24 hours, not I call you back in a week or two. I don't respond to you, and that we just became conditioned to expect. And what happens is people become apathetic about that. So when they don't try to cut through or change the process, they just say, I don't even want to vote.
That's true. You know, you say they don't care, my vote doesn't matter, or if it does matter, they're not going to do anything for me. That's kind of the mindset. So with our community, if the ball drops, we're also responsible because we have to continue to hold that person accountable. So how do you suggest we become more involved with that process?
You know, I think the first step is at least making sure that we know who our elected officials is, and we all lead busy lives. When I think about, I got 4 kids, so you're thinking about the drop-offs, the pickups, the rec center, the extra, just doing your homework with your kids, like these, and all that while you're doing all that, just the regular how we make a living and got to go to work that day. But what happens is we have to be knowledgeable about who we're putting forth to actually represent us. Take that, election day don't come around every day. Election day is like once every 2 years. Take that time when you're in your primary election, you're in your general election, and I don't be like advocating and say you gotta vote for this person. I just want you to really vote. And what happens when you do that, you have to think thoughtful, like, is this a person or all these policies that I agree with? And just consult with somebody that may pay attention to more politicians or elected officials, just the process in itself. Think about the appointments. Think about and then, like, let's say your water bill. What are the things that really concern you on a day-to-day basis? And they should be able to give you a platform in reference to how they believe they're going to address it, how they believe they're going to be supportive of it, or what they've already done to be supportive of it. But please challenge folks that have educated decisions and be able to talk to them about why we're doing what we do.
Okay.
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
This is kind of more personal, and I know you can answer this.
Yep.
I also live in Baltimore. And
Okay. What part of town?
I live in 21218.
Okay. Yep.
Over there by
Yep.
and I also own properties in Baltimore as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know, and I've spoken to a lot of other people who are interested in doing things in Baltimore, but we have the constant problem of dealing with the red tape of buying properties in the city. I know we have the Buy Baltimore program,
Mm-hmm.
but there are a lot of other city-owned programs that, between getting all the plans and, well, some of these houses are all the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I have to get architects for each one.
Mm-hmm.
I have to going through all the red tape and all the permits and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any plan to streamline the process?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people want to invest in the city, but it's just so difficult right now
Yep.
for us to buy the properties that we don't even want to deal with the city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I would think about, and say your name again, brother. Mark. So one of the things that Mark is talking about, like you have programs like Vacants to Value. So we have an agency called the Baltimore City Housing. It's like our DHCD on a state level, but Baltimore City Housing. So let's say that Mark calls my phone and say, Cory, I want to know every property that the city owns in your district. Let's say your respective district. Typically, the Baltimore City Housing can give me a map of that, lay it out, which ones are homeowners, which ones are owned by the city, or which ones they will be able to acquire very quickly because that owner might not be doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then Mark may say, okay, I think that I'd like to look at this block. What type of opportunities do you have? Let's say Project Core, or let's say what type of funding mechanism and things like that. I feel like it's my response. Everybody else don't feel like that, but I feel like it's my responsibility to kind of help Mark go through, roll out the red tape, especially if he want to do business with the city. And who I will call is, I would probably start with Jason Hessler. I would then work my way up to Michael Braverman if I wasn't getting what I needed out of it. But I try my best to help navigate anyone that's doing business in my district respectfully, to help them make sure to mitigate all that. And I tell, especially small business owners, it's so tough out here, just in government in general. A lot of times you can't get a response. Sometimes you don't know who the person to actually talk to. So let's say that you're having a problem with permits. I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to say, and I'm going to walk you through it. And what happens is, initially I'll get on the phone and then I have a staff person in my office, and Tamika will be navigating and probably follow up every time to see. And that's just how I think that business should run. That's how I think our city should run. And I think that obviously I'm doing it on an individual basis, but I'm trying my best to set a model and what I think should exist, and this is the behavior that you should operate at. So that's what I would do if you say, I want to do business in the 45th legislative district. I think I should be rolling out the red carpet for you.
Cool. Can I ask you a question? Give me your thoughts on this. Like, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, Baltimore probably had close to 1 million people.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's close to maybe 600,000.
Yep.
So you're talking about a significant loss of your tax base.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned a lot of different funds that are the resources now limited now because we don't have as much people. We have a depleting tax base. How many resources for homeowners and these kind of community-based programs? How much do we still have enough, or do we still have good resources and funding for a lot of these community-based
How do we
programs?
find them?
Yep.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm gonna go back to say, and reach out to your elected official, and be specific in reference to what you're what the ask is. So I might get a phone call, I might not know what you're talking about, Mark, and it'll be even hard for me to take 30, 40 minutes to try to figure out what you're talking about. But one of the things is that I think that the challenge that we have in Baltimore City is probably crime and education. The reality is that if you have young kids, you're always looking for the best educational opportunities, and you're also thinking about the crime that's within those neighborhoods. Some of the things that I just was looking at was a program called BRNI. BRNI is the acronym, Baltimore Regional Neighborhood Investment. So a lot of these things that you're talking about actually come from the state. The state gives a lot of assistance to the city of Baltimore. So let's say that you were a first-time home buyer. And you say, what type of opportunities are out there for me? I'm going to connect you to Southeast CDC. I'm going to connect you to Bella Edison. I'm going to connect you to one of these organizations in my district. But they should be able to help you citywide. They're not just limited to my district. And when you get connected to a Southeast CDC or a Central Baltimore Partnership or Bel Air, Edison, they should be rolling out to you the program that the city offers, because the city offers first-time home buyer money. They should also be offering, letting you know that the state offers Maryland Mortgage Program. They should also be letting you know that if sometimes it's live near your work program. So let's say if you work for Morgan, Hopkins, any of these anchor institutions, a lot of them have live near your work, and you can kind of couple that. And you probably can walk into $7,000-8,000 worth of assistance, forgivable, in order to get that. Let's say that you're some form of a developer. So let's say that Mark does about 10 or 12 houses. I would connect him, because we're actually putting out monies from the state through programs like Bernie, Community Legacy. If you're outside of Baltimore, it's called Strategic Demolition. If you're in Baltimore, we call it Operation Core. But the Department of Housing and Community Development, I sat on Environment and Transportation, but I sat on the Housing and Transportation Subcommittee, so I'm paying attention to the dollars as an entrepreneur. And I think that one of the challenges that we have in our city is probably the inequities and appropriations of dollars is the biggest one. Neighborhoods that get the dollars and neighborhoods that don't get the dollars. I think that the city has this thing that they call a NIF fund, Neighborhood Investment Fund. That's pretty big what we're talking about, but that's three components that they're talking about is the community catalyst that helps CDCs. Another portion is going to the community associations, footwork that's going on, and then the last one I think is more for you know what it is, that housing fund that they just negotiated. They're going to be putting $20 million, but that NIF fund is another large program that hasn't came into fruition right now, but you're going to start hearing about it. Okay. It's actually putting together the framework in reference to how the dollars are going to be distributed out within the city. So there are opportunities. You have to ask, and now, like I said, I will go back to the council person should respectively know, and I'm not even on the council, but the NIF fund is coming through the local government. Okay. Bernie Community Operation Core comes from the state of Maryland. And then you still have federal dollars that sometimes are impacted. I just can't think of what it is. But it's something that Baltimore City Housing, but it actually comes from the feds and all jurisdictions. I just can't get it off my tongue right now. But you have, and what happens when you see that a jurisdiction is getting poor, typically that state and the feds come in and help them out a little bit more. So even though we lost population, we still getting help.
Oh, that's reassuring.
So for entrepreneurs in your community, are there programs that you're putting into place to assist people starting their business?
Yeah, so one of the things that we should think about is the council person's job is pretty much the nuts of the day-to-day stuff. The state people's job is just kind of really the appropriations and dollars for transportation, education, and things like that to the respective local municipalities. And the same thing for the feds kind of push it towards us. So when you talk about entrepreneurs, I would connect them to, I can't think of what Jimmy Reed's shop is. It's not the, it's just a long day. But Secretary Reed has an agency that works with minorities in reference to like minority businesses and things like that. So I would connect them with that. I would also reach out to the mayor's office, because when you connecting minority business owners or business owners in general, you still are working off of 3 levels of government. So when you think about the state contracts, typically that's the driver for it. But then you have another vehicle for the local stuff that's being appropriated in dollars. Yeah.
So why the move from delegate to senator?
I went into the House of Delegates. I'm a very strong believer that you have to make the most of your time. Your time is the greatest asset that you have. You can make all this money, but you can never get this time back. Right. And when we went into the House of Delegates in the 4 years, we were able to accomplish voting rights, which we already discussed. We increased apprenticeship opportunities on state-funded projects, $1 million or more. We created residency requirements that my friend Shannon Sneed, we did the enabling language, and then she did the bill on the council level. Okay. We also did transparency. When I looked the appropriations in dollars for our schools that we're building weren't fairly distributed to the district that I respectively represent. So I felt like we had accomplished a great bit in a 4-year period being in the House of Delegates that many freshmen couldn't say,
Right.
hey, I got this stuff done. These were our goals. We set our goals out and we accomplished a great bit. But the reality was that I felt like as we were getting $2 in our pocket, somebody else was coming back around taking $1.50. And I didn't think that that was fair. I'll give you examples. We're building 23 to 28 new schools in the city of Baltimore. We call it 21st century schools. And I remember when I first got into office, the school system puts up a map on the board and they say, here's where all the schools are at, the new 23 to 28 that's being built. I say respectively, I'm an electrician. I always tell folks, can you dumb it down for me? Can you show me geographically, whether it's councilmatic, legislative, where these schools are at? Because the names on the board that you have up here, I just don't even know. And I'm born in this city. I don't even know the names of these schools. And when they showed me geographically where the 23 to 28, I was very disappointed to see that respectively in the 41st district, they were getting 7 brand new schools. That's the northwest part of the city. That and the 46th part, which is like the downtown, the Westport and Cherry Hill area, that they were getting 7 brand new schools. In the 40th district, they were getting 6 brand new schools. 43rd, they were getting 4 brand new schools. And in my district, we were getting 3. I said, how do the only people that's more poor than we are is the heart of West Baltimore. So how do the second most impoverished district in our city get the least amount of schools? I couldn't wrap my head around that. But the reality is that things are political. And if you're pushing harder and you sit in a certain position and I'm not paying attention, you're going to take my lunch. That's just the way of life.
Yeah.
The second piece of frustration comes knowing what I knew for 21st century when I started to look at the maintenance of our school buildings. When I first got into office, my first year in 2015, the school system says, here's what your district's getting for the maintenance of our school buildings. Once again, I say, can you dumb it down and can you let me know what everybody's getting so I got a better understanding of what I'm getting? And when I saw what I was getting in 2015, I said, can you show me 5 years back? I said, well, maybe you guys took care of us in 11, 12,
Right.
or 13, which is why 2015 numbers look this way. So when I saw from 2011 to 2015, my district was the last or second to last in reference to the appropriations for the maintenance of our school buildings. I said that this is almost criminal what you all are doing because you're not investing in the neighborhoods and you're making me less desirable than the other respective districts. I brought this to my colleague's attention. My colleague failed to act on it. I got I'm very aggressive, like I said, because I'm I value my time. And I said, even though he held the position, if he wasn't going to act, then I have no other choice. Because if I fail to acknowledge that the problem exists and then go on performing like it's not a problem, then I then become a part of the problem that I was going to change. So I said, I'm going to put it all on the line. A lot of folks might not know, but after 2 terms in the General Assembly, you get a pension. So I said, I don't care about a pension. I want to do the right thing. And I'm going to run for this office. We took on the second highest senator in the state of Maryland and was able to be successful. And we won by 17 points.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing. So in terms of, I know you're running for senator. You also talk about second chances. Why are you passionate about second chances?
Yep. So I would say that we won for senator, and in the general election, I would never steer anyone away from voting because this general election is important.
Yes.
You have a governor you're going to be deciding, an attorney general, and you have a lot of different elections. But it is important. But when you look for Senate, we don't have anyone running against us in that general election. So the one thing that I think about with second chances, I always tell folks I graduated from Fairmont Harford. Right there, we called it the TOOT, Fairmont Harford Institute on Harford and 25th. And one of the things that I think about was when I graduated from school, I was at a very, very critical crossroad in my life. I think that like a lot of other young people, I did a lot of things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. I just came home from doing 10 months. I'd gotten locked back up within a 30-day period of just coming home off of 10 months. And I always appreciate that I had a mom that never gave up on me. So one of the things that I think about is that when I graduated from Fairmont Harford, I never failed a grade in my life. The only grade I failed was 12. But my mom actually called the Department of Labor License and Regulation and said, send me every apprenticeship program in the state of Maryland. She tells her son to go and fill out applications at these apprenticeship programs. I was luckily accepted into the electrical apprenticeship program. If you could tell me that you're going to pay me $12.50 an hour just walking in the street, not knowing anything about electricity, and that I can get a $3-4 raise every year for 5 years until I'm making $30-some. I'm from Baltimore. I thought they were hustling me. So I thought that it was a gimmick somewhere. And one of the things is I kept going, and it was what they said it was. And what I did was, I always tell folks, I always knew how to make money. I just was able to change the surrounding from where I was at, because I was around folks that were doing something productive. They were business owners. They owned stores. They did different things outside of construction. And then I said, they're no smarter than what I am. And that's why I started purchasing the homes. I learned the trade. I figured out what I would do is, and that's how you stay out of trouble, is one of what young folks think about is the idle time. So I would actually go to work, get off at 3:30, and I'd be in the houses from 3:30 to 11. So I didn't even have time to do what I was used to doing, because I just kept myself busy from that standpoint. But the thing is that when you realize that you're winning, the true measure of success is how many people you can bring along with you. So while my entire life I was chasing money, I realized at a certain point, like, hey, money wasn't everything. It's how many people can you change the lives of successfully and move forward. And that's what I wake up every day trying to do. So when you talk about voting rights, when you talk about the Justice Reinvestment Act, when you talk about so many things that come before the legislature, I feel like I really have an impact because I actually lived it. So how many out of them 188 that can actually say, no, I was living what you're talking about, and I'm very sympathetic or very thoughtful when I make policy that deals around these types of issues.
Okay, that's excellent. And you're an inspiration for people that have been down the wrong path and can turn it around. You know, there is opportunity out there for you. You just can't give up. So what final word, because I know we have to wrap up, what would your final word be to young people and to the voters out there?
Yeah, I would speak. I really enjoy going to our schools, going in places where you can put me in front of young people. But you can do anything you put your mind to. I know it sounds very cliche, but the reality is once you believe it and once you see it, it's nothing that can get in your way to actually stop you from doing it. Folks will say that about the House of Delegates. We didn't run on anybody's ticket, or we didn't have the support of those that deem you're next up. And most people thought I was crazy to run for Senate. And when they say, like, I can't believe you even did it, but the reality is that I knew that I have a work ethic. I know that I can see things in my mind, and once it's a clear path, I'm going to push and work my heart out to get there. And that's what I would tell our young people. You can do anything that you put your mind to, but the reality is that it is so many people counting on you to win, because you're going to impact the lives of people that may not even be born yet, and they're hoping and praying that you do win. So that's what I would encourage.
We appreciate your time. How can people get in touch with you?
I tell folks that you can always Google Cory McCray. It's electcorymccray.com, Facebook, elect Cory McCray, Twitter, elect Cory McCray, and if you stroll on the gram, elect Cory McCray. And one of the things is that our email address on the state site is very public, but one of the things I try my best to do, I don't answer my phone myself, but I answer each and every one of those emails that come through that legislature. You're getting a personal response back from Cory McCray, or I put my eyes on that email.
I can say that firsthand because I've been, especially Tamika. Tamika is excellent. Oh my God. I was texting Tamika 12:30 at night and she would respond back and I'm like, what? So yes, he's very approachable, and I wish you continued success, and thank you for spending time with us at the Intimacy Chronicles.
I enjoyed it. Thank you. Yeah, I was just down there at ATU. I dropped in. I said, I got to get home and do this interview. And I thought it was on the phone.
Okay.
And you know what?